Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast for the recap of one of, if not the best, maybe Grand Tour stages of the year. There was certainly a lot of tension. The Vuelta España Stage 17, the first mountain stage of this third week, 186 Ks. We have two Cat ones, well, the same climb actually, La Collada, Yomena, 7.6 Ks at 9.1%, then a long valley of like 40 kilometers before the Cavadonga, 12.5 Ks at 7%. Not actually that steep. It's got steeper sections in it, but there's a descent pretty much for the last kilometer and a half. So yeah, it's not as hard as Gamonoteru tomorrow. Wet, rainy conditions today. Not that cold though. They still were all in summer kit. And we had Jay Vine looking better for the break, Benji, but also some satellites. So we always mentioning our satellites, Tratnik and Dylan van Baal.
Yeah, it started out very early when smaller groups started forming, including Tratnik being in one of them. And eventually we saw such chaos because so many teams were trying to get people in the breakaway, the typical stuff you always have. Indeed, Van Baalen being in one as well, one of the moves. And Jumbo perhaps starting to worry a tiny bit from that. But eventually we saw that Caruso was still fighting for KOM points at the first KOM, which is a bit surprising considering I don't believe at any point he can still win that unless he focuses on it completely. And with Haig so far up in GC, I'm severely doubting that. But
it's not a worthy goal. He came second in GC at the Giro. They got a guy fourth on GC. If you don't count Ike Martin, what's he doing?
I don't know. Like I think he has his own demands in the team, and after getting second in Giro, perhaps he deserves it. But yeah, it's just not really good for the team right now, and perhaps later on in the stage he might have needed that energy. Anyway, Mark Padun being in one of the attacks as well, just groups everywhere trying to get away. And then one of them actually got a solid gap, and that was a significant group, including Van Baarle. But yeah, Jumbo wasn't too happy with that, and that already started on the first of those Cat 1 climbs where we saw also next to Jumbo pacing a move by Mikel Landa, of all people.
Oh my God. It's like David de la Cruz had bridged across to Trentin about 10 minutes earlier when the gap was 30 seconds. Landa's like, no. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for that gap to be a minute 10, then bridge across, then be completely over my limit. It's just like, what's he doing? It's just, I don't know. At least he tried something, got on TV for a little bit, but it seemed like a waste of time to me. So yeah, it's interesting. Bahrain having Caruso try, Padun try, Tratnik in the break. Landa's now done something. All riders that can be helpful on this stage later. And also Ineos doing their best, Benji, to pace hard with Sivakov on the first Category 1 climb, and that really shredded the breakaway. The problem was Sivakov, it was fast, and that group went down to 20-25. The problem was Sivakov also had to lead the descent because Ineos had no one else there at that moment. And everyone came back. Eichen got dropped on that climb, and then everyone came back because Sivakov's not great descending. So it didn't look like break, did it, Benji? It just looked like Ineos and Jumbo had a little bit too much ambition today. So what happened on the second last climb where even Pidcock did his best to light this race up?
Yeah, Van Baarle was caught by that group behind, which means that he can help out for Ineos in the elite group. And in that elite group, Ineos seemed to have a plan because their riders were moving to the front. Pidcock was working a bit, and also Van Baarle a lot. He was simply riding basically half the climb at a solid tempo because at the back of the group you saw half the group dropping, if not more. And the likes of Viking dropping for the second time today. He came back after the first time they went on the Cat 1 climb. Now he was dropping completely, it seemed, because, yeah, that tempo was pretty high. And what were they pacing for? Well, there was all of a sudden an attack by a certain someone that decided to go with 61.5 kilometers to go. Egan Bernal. Were you expecting it?
Well, yeah, because he said actually in the press, I want to attack Roglic if I have the legs. I'm not sure if he gave it in English language press, but yeah, he said that. And I was like, well, he doesn't. The guy doesn't really lie about his strategy usually, and it makes sense, Benji, because Haig, Lopez, Mas, Roglic, what are they all definitely worse than Bernal at? A wet descent, full gas, and we have this descent afterwards. It's wet. If he gets on his own, then he can create a situation which is perfect for him, which is, Roglic having to pace a descent harder than he likes, or if Roglic is with him, then Bahrain Victorious will have to pace the descent, who aren't, those guys haven't looked great on the descents either. And it was weird, Benji, in that Koos tried to follow Bernal. Roglic follows Bernal straight away. Bernal's fifth on GC, but it's so far on the finish, Roglic having none of it. Maybe he's not, maybe just reacts to it, whatever. Reacts. Koos then goes to market. And Miguel Angel Lopez, was he caught in the group, or why did no Movistar rider react, Benji?
Seemed like he was deeping a bit when it was happening, and Bernal goes off the front like we said. Roglic is the one that is on the wheel of Bernal doing in the attack, and Mas is not reacting. Lopez is not reacting instantly, and then eventually, after a bit, Lopez comes to the front and actually makes a move, tries to get a bit of a gap on that group. But if the gap is already like 20 seconds at that point, then you're basically, you've kind of fucked yourself, haven't you? Because now you have to try and chase them down, who are riding a severely high tempo. This climb was done at 6.4 watts per kilogram estimated. So we don't know if those numbers are 100% correct, but those are the ones estimated by Amati Piorelli again on Twitter. So they were climbing fast, and I think that Lopez made the mistake of not being in the wheel of those attacks instantly, and them not having a rider respond instantly. Movistar is obviously a mistake because now they're in the chasing group with one rider, Mas, Lopez eventually being caught again. So two riders in that chasing group. And what can they do? They either have to offer up a position in GC for Mas or Lopez. Obviously, Lopez would be the candidate to do so. Or they have to try and bet it completely on all the other teams present in that group.
Yeah, and also Movistar have been somewhat surprisingly letting Verona go into breaks when he's their only versatile domestique right now with no Valverde, and with Oliveira and Erviti not being good enough, they can't get over these climbs here. So yeah, they've got no domestique. Before we get, we've got a big tactical discussion. I'm not sure if we disagree either, but before we get into that, I'll mention our show partner, Le Col, who produce performance cycling apparel. Some of the riders might have needed their rain jackets in the wet today. Le Col have an awesome sale on at the moment, and you can get even steeper discounts using the LR Vuelta 20. It's LR Vuelta 20 discount code, all caps, which can get you 20% off already discounted items. Le Col have been supporting the podcast since its inception last year, nearly a year to the date, their partnership, Le Col, with Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast. So thanks for them supporting the show, and you can see them in the description below. But race situation, Roglic and Bernal on the descent. Bernal mainly working on the technical sections. They eventually start pulling in when it's pedaling later. And Roglic was being fairly cautious, Benji. He wasn't right on Bernal's wheel. He was laying off a bit. Bahrain pacing behind on the descent. They got poles. They miss a turn, and Benji, and they just kind of get gun shy, right? And then they stop pacing, or who even took over? Was it like Zvihoff or someone?
Well, for the initial part of the descent, they kept on going after that turn, and they kept on going for a bit. But you know that when Pouls is going into descent, he's just missed a turn, that the tempo is not going to go that well. And then the second rider, who was also in that Bahrain train, also missed a turn in that descent. So then at a certain point, Haig was at the front of the tree because of those mistakes, which is not ideal. So they tried to fix that, but indeed, in the end, Ben Zwihoff, who surprisingly survived with this elite group on the climb itself, went to the front and started hammering it when the road started to become a bit more flatter towards the end. And we know he's not the best flat rider. We've joked about it a few times this season, and that became very clear because he was losing time left and right. The gap was going up. It was a minute, roughly halfway to descend, and Bernal just kept expanding that 1 minute 20, 1 minute 30. Roglic as well, kicking in as well to work with Bernal at that point. Do you think that was a mistake?
From who?
Roglic?
Not really, because the descent... Listen, if Roglic crashes on the descent, following the guy who's fifth on GC, who, if you count in the TT time he's going to gain, he's like 5 minutes ahead of him on GC. If Roglic crashes whilst Bernal is risking everything on the descent, everyone's going to call Roglic an idiot again, right? Everyone. But he didn't. That was the risk. But today there's a much, much bigger payoff than compared to the other day. Once you get into that valley, once you maybe hear on the radio, the team behind consists of Remy Rochas chasing you and and Wout Poels who's sitting like upright like a sail. And if you just work with and Bernal's giving you full turns, now your reward, okay, you've already done the descent at this point. So yeah, work with Bernal. And I presume, hey, if Roglic was on the limit, not feeling good, there's no way he works with Bernal either. So yeah, there is a risk sitting, doing those turns, and compared to say Haig or Lopez or Mas behind who are sitting in, but they're building out a big buffer. And at that point, Benji, the gap is over a minute because Bernal's gained so much on the descent. So seemed like perfectly fine to me for a guy who was feeling good. I didn't have a problem with that. My big problem with the risk was the descent. That was fine. So it is what it is. Do you have any differing thoughts?
I've got the same feeling. The difference with that other stage is that on this one, you indeed have a clear payoff. The situation, knowing that the group was relatively small already, that when Bernal attacked, could have such a high reward to the point where if it really succeeds, he might be relatively secure when it comes to the Vuelta. If it doesn't succeed, if it doesn't work, then he just drops back to the group. He can recover in the valley as well. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is much more worthy to make the move, like you say. I've got the same feeling about it. When it comes to Bernal, obviously, we can't complain about a guy sitting on how much 3 minutes in GC on Roglic, attacking from this far. It's pretty obvious that he needs to do something crazy to try and move up in GC, and that's what he tried today. So you can only be happy about something like that, because I love people who are sitting on sixth and seventh and don't give a crap about sixth and seventh and try to go for first. And that's what Bernal did here.
It was, heroic move. Once he does get into the valley with Roglic on his wheel, now he's riding for podium, obviously, because he's with Roglic. But that's fine too. He's shooting his shot to gain a big chunk of time on Movistar, who were not pacing at all behind. And I feel like Benji, we went back to 2019 Movistar a little bit today. We had no guys willing to sacrifice for the other. We had complete acceptance of podium, which maybe that's realistic. Roglic is a minute 30 up the road. He's got the TT coming up, but he was only 20 seconds ahead of Mas before this stage. They completely went into protect podium mode, both of those guys. And at one point, we had Bernal virtually in second on GC, and they're just leaning on Bahrain to pace. I saw Felix Groschart and Albora shouting at Miguel Angel Lopez. What can you do, Benji? Because Movistar are basically calling your bluff if you're Bahrain, because they just won't pace. And then what? Then Bernal leapfrogs Haig on GC, or do you think they've got more to lose? They would have paced with Lopez because they are second and third on GC, and they're having the guy fourth on GC pacing.
Yeah, I think they looked at the situation in the group and went off of that. You've got Roglic sitting ahead, so obviously the first place is already gone there. You've got Haig in your group with teammates, and you don't have teammates because your two riders there are not considered teammates of each other. They're considered leaders. And I think they looked at that and said, well, we're going to risk it, and we're going to see if Bahrain tries to pace the entire valley section. And if that's the case, then perhaps we have more energy to take time back on the climb, because while it's going up from like a minute to 2 minutes on the flat section, that gap can go down quickly if something happens at the front. If Bernal explodes or Roglic explodes on the latter climb, because they spend a lot of energy in the valley. Well, on paper, Lopez and Mas don't do that effort because a Bahrain rider is doing that effort. And eventually it was Poels doing a lot of the work initially, but then Caruso came back from behind with a small group of riders, and Caruso really hit the front hard. And that gap went down from 2 minutes 16 to 140 in about roughly 10 kilometers.
Crazy.
So we were with a gap of 1 minute 40 roughly going into the final climb. A bit lower, actually, I think. 1 minute 30, 1 minute 25, perhaps
125.
Even. And it was mainly thanks to Caruso and Rémi Rochat doing the work for your boy Guillaume Martin. So it's so interesting to see, because you would think, oh, Martin, why is he doing this? But then you look at GC and you're like, okay, yeah, he's up there in GC, so I understand that he's having to do this work as well. But on the other end, if Rochat does not pace here and the tempo is lower in the group, is that not better for Martin on the final climb, because he's not going to beat Roglic in GC anyway?
I don't really know why Covidus were pacing Benji, because Bernal and Roglic are ahead of him on GC. I don't know. Same with Groschart, who had an unfortunate crash as well. I think Bahrain they came off the front for a bit, right, in the valley and didn't pace. I think that was the point where they were trying to call Movistar's bluff. The
Yeah.
gap goes to 2:16 and still Lopez doesn't pace. And they're like, what the fuck? Like, if they're not going to pace now with Bernal second in GC virtually, then there's no bluff to call. And then, Cruz comes back and they pace. And by the time they get to the climb, very simple strategy for Bahrain victorious. Pace steady for Haig, who probably didn't feel as good as Marcel Lopez either. And we see up the road, Benji, we'd even seen it on some of the rises, Bernal getting gapped off the wheel, Roglic pulling like an absolute truck. Roglic just straight up rides away from Egan Bernal on Cavadonga and doesn't even look back, wasn't even an attack. And at that point, with all the work he'd done, I was worried. Like, how likely did you think this group is going to catch Bernal and this will all be for nothing?
Bernal, I was thinking very likely. I think Roglic was basically impossible at that point, because if he can drop Bernal and look so good at that point, knowing that the Covadonga climb is so odd at the end where it goes up and down towards the finish line in the last 4 kilometers, meaning that you have to go early to create a gap and keep the gap. Well, it was a good move to perhaps pedal even harder at that point to drop Bernal, even though I don't really think he had to do that to get Bernal off the wheel. But yeah, I think that Bernal would be caught, because once we saw Bernal suffering the wheel of Roglic already, I was already getting worried, because we've seen Bernal crack quite a few times where when he drops from the front, he cracks completely for a bit. And we've had that on Segadiala in the Giro, but also,
Pratiditivo. He
Pratiditivo,
lost 30 seconds just straight up the back.
And while Roglic was obviously going to take time on him continuously towards the finish line, but at that point, I think Bernal was just trying to survive on the group behind, where attacks started happening. But who was the first one to attack? Was it Lopez who made the first move, or Yates?
Movistar rode like complete yellow-bellied cowards today. It was like to sit in that whole valley, not do anything. And listen, maybe Bahrain they had 4 riders. Maybe they should have tried to attack Movistar, who were isolated. But Jumbo-Visma had 4 riders on the flat too, and they would have shut it down. But for Movistar, sitting all day, to have the guy, Bernal's cracking, Roglic is gone. First is gone. Lopez attacks. You know who he's attacking, Benji? Mas. That's the guy he's attacking and gaining time against. Mas, yes, he gets to sit in, but he's not bringing back Roglic. Why else is he attacking? Why else wouldn't Lopez and Mas go to the front and limit the gap to Roglic and prevent attacks from Hagen Co? What's the explanation other than Lopez is going for second over Mas?
I kind of agree. Now, probably he's not going to say it like that, or probably Movistar isn't going to see it like that. I think that they were perhaps keeping in mind that they wanted to try and take time on Haig there or something, or they wanted to make sure they have more time on Yates to have their podium more secure by making Lopez do the move and have Mas as the defensive rider like they did the entire Vuelta so far. But the problem is, like you say, the rider that they are supposed to be attacking is a minute and a half ahead. So that's not very great if you want to try and attack that person. So yeah, it was a bit of a questionable thing, but yeah, in the end, it seemed like Haig was starting to get into trouble with Mader. And honestly, when we were talking about Bahrain pacing in the valley, what would have happened if Gino Mader went for the attack in the valley and Bahrain just stopped pacing? Would Jumbo care about Gino Mader?
How far behind is he on GC? He's pretty far. He's 6 minutes 50. So no, they would not care about Mader. He's at 7:50.
So
maybe for Koos, for GC Koos, they would have shut it down.
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah. Like they actually would have. But yeah, sorry, long story short, Roglic drops Bernal. He outpaces on Cavadonga, the Bahrain trains and the Movistar attacks. He wins this stage. We've glossed over him a little bit, but this is an iconic victory for Roglic, following a move he didn't have to. The No Risk, No Glory T-shirts will be selling like hotcakes because they actually apply today, because the stage win was on offer, which is, an actual glorious thing. And he wins this stage incredibly, like dropping Bernal, shouts across the line, puts the Vuelta pretty much, I dare say, to bed, but the gap is smaller than I actually thought it was to Enric Mas. And yeah, basically bludgeons Movistar into submission, into protecting their second and third on GC, which they barely even did today. Poor Bernal gets caught by the Bahrain group, who they actually rode like, they basically, Gino made an outstanding job from him today. Lopez attacks, goes with Yates and Koos, who sit on him. He stops. Mast attack, and Haig gets brought back by Mader. Mast then attacks, and then he did his Catalunya. Remember that Catalunya attack, Benji, that Mast did when Port was pacing, and he did the same face. He did the same face today, and I was like, that ain't the Mast face you want to see when he attacked with 4Ks to go. He got brought back quick, smart, and then Haig and Mader at the front again, and that group catches Bernal, and I felt so bad for him to not gain any time. He put it all on the line, and they roll in pretty much together with GC Koos taking second on the stage for the Jumbo-Visma 1-2 and Lopez the 4-burner second. So it's Roglic first, 135 ahead of Koos, then Lopez, Yates, Haig, Mast, Bernal, Mader all on the same time, which I'll let Benji talk about Cavadonga and why he might not like it too much in a second. Mankey's on his own 9th on 2:29, Champerson 10th. Groschartner loses more. Guillaume Martin loses like 3 minutes 12 to the main GC group, and Iking blows up completely. So GC, revised GC, Roglic 2:22 ahead of Mast, which it's a big gap with the TT, not going to lie, but still it's not like 10 minutes. Lopez third on 3:11. He gains 4 on Haig, who moves into fourth on 3:46, 35 seconds behind. Guillaume Martin drops down to fifth. Bernal on 4:29 in sixth. And then Yates in 7th on 4:45, Koos 8th, 5:04, and Groschartner, Gino Mader in 10th on 6:58. But what do you think of this stage, Benji? Do you enjoy it, iconic, or it fizzled out in the end because Bernal got no just desserts?
I feel like I really enjoyed today's stage. It's one of the greater stages of this Grand Tour, certainly. And when it comes to comparing it to Tour de France or Giro stages, I'm not sure if I would call it one of the top stages, but it's certainly one that kept me watching for quite a bit, and that's very intriguing. Now, I don't like the Lagos de Covadonga climb for one reason only. Usually, the gaps are very minimal in the GC group, and the only way that a gap would be huge on a stage like this is with a move like the one from Bernal. So, if Bernal didn't do the attack today, we might have had a very different race where everything happened on the final climb. Some attacks at the start of Covadonga. One of them would stick. The second rider would be in the lead group, and we'd have gaps of 10 seconds between the riders, just like in the one in 2018, I think, where Lopez got second just behind Pino. Same thing, 10 seconds between all the elite riders on that climb. So that's why I don't like this climb personally. But in the end, very good stage. Now, question. For me, Terpstra in 2017, or what was it? The year he won RVV, 2018, sorry. Vincenzo Nibali made an attacking move with 40-ish kilometers to go, or a bit more than 40 kilometers, which eventually Terpstra bridged to, and he launched off the back of Nibali. That victory is obviously thanks to Nibali. If you look at today, did Bernal just decide the Vuelta?
Yeah, pretty much. But Roglic has to decide to go with him, and he certainly gave Roglic the solo win over a minute ahead. This has got to be one of the most dominant wins, because he didn't win in the Basque Stage 6 either. One of his best wins ever in terms of a run for GC at the same time. So yes, because Jumbo-Visma their plan wasn't to attack second last climb. Certainly. I actually do think he would have launched it on the last climb.
And he has to do it early because the latter part of the climb is quite shit.
Yeah. So I don't know. Did it help? Yes. I guess what Roglic didn't have to do, which made it a bit more iconic, was work so much with Bernal, and he did that when he didn't have to. It would have also helped Bernal, but Bernal almost went over his limit. Anyone from today that you think... I refuse to criticise Bernal, by the way. He got caught, didn't gain any time, might have gained time otherwise, but I refuse to criticise it because he put it all on the line to actually either try and win or get on the podium. But any other teams you think will be like, what were we doing today?
I think obviously Movistar and Bahrain, we've spoken about them enough. Who else is really in the picture for that top 10? I think Jumbo can definitely be happy about their performance being a solid 1-2 in the stage, with Kas coming second there. But I am curious. Would Ineos be happy? I think they didn't gain anything from today, despite all the stuff they put in. So that's why they won't be happy. But at least Bernal showed that what he says on a rest day is definitely something to be listened to. Bora, Zwiehoff pacing for Groschartner's GC. Was that a good idea?
I don't know. It doesn't make a difference to him, really.
I think it makes one difference that it puts a bit of pressure on Guillaume Martin, but does it really if you do it on the Valley section?
No.
Is really getting the same draft that Großschartner is getting. Then again, Großschartner got the crash as well that Martin didn't get. But our our discussion yesterday, would Eiking lose the red jersey? Well, I think you are right, sir.
What did I say?
You said that he was going to lose the jersey, and
Really?
I thought he was going to survive today.
Mate, I'm literally a goldfish. I have no recollection of what I've said more than like 20 seconds ago.
You said Roglic would lose 10 minutes today.
I stand behind that. Tomorrow's stage, 163 Ks from Salas to Alto del Gamonetero. We have maybe the hardest mountain finish in a Grand Tour this year. We have a Cat 1 44 Ks in Puerto de San... Jeez, it's hard to pronounce. Llorenzu, then the Alto de la Cobertoria, 8Ks, 8.7% after that. Valleys, again, it's quite similar to today's stage. Then an 8.3K, 5.7% climb, descent into 14.5Ks at 10%, which is pretty disgusting, actually. It's actually quite regular. There's I'm sure there's pinches in it, but there's most of the Ks are like 11.5%, 11%. I don't see there's nothing like 13, 14, 16% like
there's sections where it goes to 16% at certain points, but it's not like it's a full kilometer. It's not like Segriala with the 17% kilometer, but it's certainly one of the most consistent high gradient climbs of it. And there's also some parts to it. We've got the Cobertoria in that stage. That's actually the first half of that climb. So basically, they go to the top of Cobertoria and they switch on to the Gamonitero extension of the Cobertoria climb to have the finish on Gamonitero. And if you want to know an extra fact, we've got the Angliru being like 5 kilometers away from the top of this climb as well. So Angliru is definitely not far away from this, and it's basically the evil sister of the Angliru, which it is called. And looking at last year, we had Angliru in the Vuelta, and it had the same climb just before it, Cordal. That's the one where Froome attacked. I'm afraid that we won't see a Froome attack on this one, I'm afraid.
Do we see Adam Yates on that first climb doing the Froome though, Benji? Do we see it? I mean, if he couldn't get distance on the group today, did he even try and attack?
He attacked once, I think. But didn't go anywhere, did it?
Did you know that Vlasov is still in this race, Benji? He finished 35 minutes down today. Do you have any word on him? Like, what's going on?
Like, we saw his crash at the descent of the second last climb today, and it looked like he was touching his collarbone.
Right.
I'm surprised that he's still in the race.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to play for. If I'm Bora Hansgrohe, I'd say, Astana, can you please let him leave the race?
Give me a refund.
Oh, that's it. Jesus. Sounds like something I would say. But tomorrow's stage, we just had a big action today. Breakaway. It's always hard for a break to hang on in like a valley like that, as well as such a hard finishing climb. Like the GC guys can just take back time so quickly unless it's a top climber. I'm thinking Romain Bardet tomorrow, Benji.
I'm thinking Jay Vine.
He looked better today. He was active at the front, so that's good news. It is a watts per kilo test. So I'm going for hoping break, and I think do you think Roglic, what do you think about GC, Benji? Jumbo-Visma? I think Jumbo-Visma might try and help Kuss go for 5th.
I think after today they might be a bit more defensive, knowing that they spend so much energy with Roglic on the stage. Sure, they might try and do something with Kuss, but what are you going to do? Perhaps put him in the breakaway? Yeah, that's possible. But like focus on him for the final climb? No, because obviously he'll just try and follow there and make sure he doesn't explode on an attack of Adam Yates on the final climb. But this is actually a very brutal finish. I'm expecting action on it, and I hope that the breakaway wins just because I want to see Jay Vine being able to at least compete for another stage win. And I think that it's kind of possible, but there's a point to it here. You've got the fact that you've got Movistar, who is... Do they have a stage win yet so far in this race? No, right?
No. A Spanish rider hasn't won a Grand Tour stage this year.
Oof, that's a statistic that hurts. Aramburu almost. But
if you're Miguel Angel Lopez, are you comfortable going into the TT 30 seconds ahead of Haig, protecting 3rd?
It depends which Lopez you are that day, because
You're
I
Miguel
don't know
Angel
if you,
Lopez.
which one.
That one.
We don't know which one it is right now. Like, he has great TTs, he has horrible TTs. I think that
I wouldn't be comfortable.
I would not be comfortable either. But is Haig comfortable with a 30 seconds deficit on Lopez to catch Lopez?
Yeah, but Miguel Angel Lopez is Miguel Angel Lopez, which I've now said 4 times. Haig is, I don't think, top 10 in a Grand Tour before. So he's playing with house money. He's just trying to hang on the climbs. I think Lopez is going to use tomorrow to try and gain another 50. I think what we saw today, he's trying to gain time on Haig, and I think he's going to try and do it tomorrow on Gamoter. It's his best chance because stage 20 is that sort of Andalusia style stage that Fulsang, Schachmann, Haig are quite good at, bigger guys. Tomorrow, I think Lopez tries to put 20 to 30 into Haig to shore up that TT. Because 30 seconds on that 33K TT for Lopez after his Planche de Belfier aberration, he won't be. I don't think he'll be sleeping comfortably with that. I think Master defends. I think Roglic is happy after today, and I hope
Certainly.
Bernal gets a win.
Would be pretty sad if Roglic is not happy after today. He's basically sitting relatively secure in the leader jersey unless something happens to him or he completely collapses tomorrow on Gamoniteru, which is always possible, but a bit unlikely based on what we saw today, to be honest. But I can't wait to see Gamoniteru, and I think you can neither. I hope that we see Mader in the bloody break like we've called the entire bloody race so far, but it hasn't happened.
Yeah, but how can he go on the break if he's got to pace Haig?
Well,
but also, like, will they let him in the break? If you were Jumbo Visma, would you let Mader in the break this close to the finish of the Vuelta with the way he's climbing? I would, if he's got Tratnik in there with him. No way.
Yeah, that's true. The thing about it is, would you rather have Caruso pacing or Mader on the final climb?
Depends on the gradient. On this one tomorrow, probably Mader. But Caruso is very strong as well. Either or, to be honest. But I think Movistar would pace back Mader as well. I just don't think it's realistic that he goes in the break. Movistar won't allow it.
Yeah. I think we need to finish off with just our new statement that we need to have at least one Bahrain rider going for the stage tomorrow, and it doesn't need to be Mader. It needs to be Arashiro. Hashtag free Arashiro.
Legit free Arashiro. I mean, Jesus, maybe you can help Landa. Maybe Landa needs to. They can go back to class. Like, there's a little circuit in Andorra on the road near me. They have like a driving school. It's like a safe area off the road. We're going to have Arashiro. He's going to teach Mikel Landa how to take on 6 bottles at a time and then move up the peloton safely, because that's about his level right now. That's maybe what he can do to help out the team instead of meme attacks and getting dropped. But anyway, that's enough from the Vuelta a España. An iconic, well, I think it's an iconic stage. I'll remember it for a long time. Yeah. The Roglic long ranger, and full credit to Egan Bernal as well. Hopefully we see more action tomorrow. That's our big mega recap today of the World Tour racing for the last couple of days. We hope you enjoyed it. If you want to support the podcast, feel free to submit roasts as long as they have 5 stars on podcast players, or like the video down below if you watch on YouTube and get us to that 20,000 subscriber goal for Benji and I. But until stage 18's recap tomorrow, ciao.